It has already happened. You did not announce it. You did not even decide it. One morning, the inner motion that used to rise inside you, that quick, automatic turning toward the other person's mood, simply did not rise. The room was the same, the voice was the same, the request was the same, but something inside you had gone quiet. And you noticed only because the quiet was new. You recognized this, the door inside you, the one that used to open before anyone knocked it, has stopped opening, not slammed, not locked, just no longer responding to the frequency it was trained to answer. For most of your life, your inner response was faster than thought. Someone shifted their tone, and you were already adjusting. Someone tightened their face, and your body was already softening to compensate. You did not call this empathy then. You did not call it anything. It was simply the air you breathed, the constant, microscopic labor of staying attuned to whoever was in the room. You read the room before you read yourself. You answered for them before they finished asking, and because this happened beneath language, to you believed it was who you were. It was not who you were. It was what you had been required to become. What has ended is not your capacity to feel. What has ended is the automatic transmission between their need and your response. The wire is still there. The current no longer travels it. And this is the strangest part. You did not cut the wire. You did not perform a ritual of severance. You did not announce a boundary. The wire simply stopped conducting the way a household appliance stops working one ordinary afternoon. Without warning, without ceremony, and you are left holding an object that looks exactly like it always did, but no longer does what it was made to do. In my work on the formation of the persona, I observed that what we call personality is often nothing more than a sustained internal response to the environment of childhood. The empath, in this sense, is not born. The empath is conscripted, a child placed in a household where another person's mood determined the safety of the room, learns to track that mood the way other children learn to track danger. The tracking becomes constant, the tracking becomes invisible, and eventually the tracking becomes the self. What you are noticing now is the moment that self stopped tracking. The mirror in your hallway shows you the same face. The mirror does not register the change, but you, standing before it, register something. The mirror cannot the absence of the small inner adjustment you used to make before walking into the next room. You used to compose yourself before opening the door. You used to rehearse softness before speaking. You used to feel faintly the people on the other side of the wall and shape yourself accordingly. Now you walk through the door as you are, not defiantly, not coldly, simply as you are, and the door, which used to be a checkpoint, is now only a door. This is not what you imagined cessation would feel like. You imagined, perhaps, a great refusal, a scene, a confrontation in which you finally said the thing. You imagined adrenaline, courage, a clear before and after. What actually arrived was the opposite of drama. It was an absence, so quiet you almost missed it. You went a whole day without performing the inner labor, and you only noticed at the end of the day When the exhaustion that used to follow such days did not arrive, the exhaustion was the proof. Without the labor, the exhaustion had nothing to feed on. And so you sat with a strange, unfamiliar sensation, a body that had not spent itself answering an unspoken demand. The people around you have not yet named what has shifted. They feel it before they understand it. Their requests, the ones that used to land softly in you and produce immediate motion, now land and do not produce motion. They wait unconsciously for the response that always came. The response does not come. There is a small delay. The delay is the new thing. In the delay, they begin to feel something they have not felt around you in years, the presence of another person, separate from themselves, who is not already arranging herself to meet them. This unsettles them. They will not say so. They may not even know it. What they have lost is not your love. What they have lost is access. The two were not the same, though they had been allowed to confuse them for a very long time. Love was the reason you stayed. Access was the reason they did not have to ask. When access disappears, the relationship is forced for the first time to become a relationship, meaning two people, each of whom must now extend something across a distance that used to be erased before it was felt. Some of them will not be able to do this. The skin of the connection was made of your constant unilateral reaching. Without that reaching, there is no skin. The connection thins. It does not announce its thinning. It simply becomes harder to find. The way a frequency drifts off a station without anyone touching the dial. You will be tempted in the first weeks to believe you have hardened. You have not hardened. The door is not closed. The door is no longer automatic. There is a difference, and the difference is the entire psychological event. An automatic door responds to anyone who approaches. A door with a hand on it responds to whom you choose. The hand is yours now. It was always supposed to be yours. It had simply been taken from you so early that you did not remember it was missing. Part of you is grieving this, not the loss of the people, the loss of the version of yourself who could be reached without effort, who could be summoned by a tone, who lived in a state of perpetual readiness. That self had a kind of terrible competence. She knew how to keep rooms warm. She knew how to absorb what was unspoken. She knew how to die a little, daily, in service of an atmosphere, and she has gone quiet now, not because she failed, but because something deeper finally refused to keep her employed. The mirror, again, you pass it in the morning and you no longer search it for evidence of how you are appearing to others. You glance and you move on. This is the smallest revolution, and it is the one that will rearrange the rest. The dial has drifted, and the people on the old frequency are beginning to notice, not all at once, not in any way they can articulate. They notice the way a room notices when a clock stops, not by hearing the silence, but by the slow recognition that something familiar has been missing for longer than they realized. The first to feel it are the ones who needed the access most. They will not call it that. They will say you have changed. They will say you seem distant. They will say they cannot reach you the way they used to. What they mean, beneath the language they have available, is that the door no longer opens before they knock. They have to knock now, and knocking for someone who never had to feels like rejection. It is not rejection, it is the return of a threshold that should have always been there. Some of them will knock harder. They will escalate the tone. They will introduce small tests, a sharpened word, a withdrawn warmth, a silence designed to summon the old reaching in you. The tests are not cruelty. The tests are the unconscious doing what the unconscious does when a familiar supply has been interrupted. It searches for the lever, it pulls the lever, it expects the response. The response does not come. The lever is intact. The mechanism behind it has been disconnected. You will feel the pull. This is important to understand. The disconnection of the mechanism does not mean the absence of the pull. The pull will still arrive, and arrive sharply. In the moments when someone you love performs the precise gesture that used to move you instantly, you will feel the old motion begin in your chest. You will feel the body lean forward, and then you will feel. And this is the new thing. The thing that has completed the motion, not finishing. It begins, it does not arrive, it dies somewhere between the impulse and the action, and what is left in its place is a clarity so quiet, it feels almost like indifference, though it is not indifference. It is the simple fact that the inner servant has put down her tools. In my work with patients caught in this kind of pattern, I observed that what we call selflessness in such persons is almost always a defense, a survival shape, so old it has been mistaken for character. When the defense begins to dissolve, there is no triumph. There is only a strange neutrality, and beneath the neutrality, an exhaustion that has been waiting decades for permission to be felt. You may feel that exhaustion now, not as collapse, as recognition, the body finally being allowed to say how tired it has been. The mirror does not flinch from this. The mirror, which once you scanned for signs of how you were being received, has become something else entirely, a surface that simply returns what is there. Without commentary, without demand, you meet your own face the way you would meet the face of a stranger you had decided to take seriously. With patience, without negotiation, I once treated a woman in middle life who came to me with this dream. She was standing in the long hallway of the house she had grown up in, and at the end of the hallway was a door she had passed 1,000 times without opening. In the dream, she walked toward it slowly, and as she walked, she became aware that the hallway was lined with small bells, bells set into the walls at the height of her shoulder. Dozens of them, each one connected to a thin wire that ran back toward the rooms behind her. She understood, in the way one understands inside a dream, that for her entire life these bells had been ringing whenever someone in those rooms needed her, and she had answered each one without thought. In the dream, the bells were silent, the wires were still there, the bells did not ring. She reached the door at the end of the hallway, and she did not open it, she simply stood before it, and the standing was the entire event. She woke with a distinct sense that something had been returned to her, though she could not say what. What had been returned to her was the interval, the space between the bell and the answer, the space which, in her waking life had been compressed to nothing for as long as she could remember. The dream gave her back the interval, and once the interval was returned, the compulsion to close it lost its authority. This is what has happened in you, not in a dream. In the waking architecture of your days, the interval has returned. There is now a space between the signal and your response, and inside that space, for the first time, something that is actually you can decide whether to move. Most days, you will not move. This is not coldness. This is the recovery of proportion. The signals that used to summon your entire being were never proportionate to begin with. A small mood was treated as an emergency. A passing displeasure was treated as a verdict. The inner emergency room was always staffed, always lit, always running. Now it is dark. The lights are off. The staff has gone home, and the small moods of other people pass through the room without finding anyone on duty. The door, again, you walk through it now without rehearsal. The hallway behind you is quiet. The bells are still on the walls, you have not removed them. You do not need to remove them, but they no longer ring. Or, if they ring at a volume that no longer reaches the part of you that used to leap. There will be people who interpret this as loss. Let them. Their interpretation is not your responsibility. It was never your responsibility, though you carried it as if it were for so long that the carrying became invisible to you. What is visible now is the simple shape of your own day, unshaped by the moods of others. You eat without monitoring. You speak without pre-softening. You sit in a room without scanning it. These are small things. They are the small things that, in their accumulation, are the entire return of a life. You did not cause this by deciding. You did not engineer it through discipline. Something deeper than your will withdrew its consent, and the withdrawal was final before your conscious mind caught up. This is how genuine psychological events occur. They occur beneath the level at which we can interfere. By the time we notice them, they are already complete. The noticing is not the cause. The noticing is the late arrival of awareness to a fact already established in the deeper layers. What you are doing now is learning to live inside a fact you did not author. The automatic response is gone. It will not be reinstalled. There is no version of returning to who you were before, because who you were before was not a person, it was a function. The function has been retired. What remains is a person, and a person is a slower, quieter, more deliberate creature than the function ever was. The people who loved the function will mourn it. The people who love you will, in time, meet you. The two groups are not always the same. You are beginning to be able to tell them apart. The compliance has ended. It will not resume.
This has been Carl Jung Original, a space where the patterns most people live through can finally be named. Voice and imagery, AI-assisted interpretation and framing, original work. Until next lecture.